So one of the things that I've been doing lately is sort of looking at concepts and ideas and seeing how there's like an attachment between two things that are not, that are like sort of commonly considered as synonymous, but in reality there might be some correlation between the two things, but there's no, the actuality between the two things is that they might not be as related as appears to be the case. Or if they are viewed in that way, then perhaps there's some incorrect, conclusion that has been drawn about, whatever item, there may be. So one of the things that I was thinking about that is like sort of heavily linked, where there's two concepts that are often considered sort of, sort of like synonyms for each other, or they're like supposed to be representation. They represent each other. Is the idea of freedom and choice. So, and I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, so I haven't really come to any sort of conclusion. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just sort of examining, these two ideas, to see if there is a relationship between the two, or if, they're somehow entangled with each other in a way that is perhaps inappropriate and leads to, a fogginess of understanding when it comes to the subject. So, when we have a lot of choices, does that mean that we have a lot of freedom? Is a person who has, sort of like sitting at home and they have like a few choices, are they less free than somebody, who has to, some businessman who like has to like make, hundreds of choices every day, So like the businessman has more freedom, or is considered to have perhaps more freedom because he has more choices. But, where is his choice to make choices, It's like, where is his freedom to make choices? He's sort of forced to make choices. So every choice that he makes, because he has to make a lot of them, he doesn't have a lot of time to consider, what the outcome is for every choice. He just sort of has to make them very quickly. And, sort of, if he's a good businessman, then he probably has some instinct on how, what the outcome is going to be, good enough that, he ends up with a better result than a worse result. But, some of his choices may not, lead to positive outcomes, but because he makes so many and he's usually on the mark, the net effect is, he's sort of an asset to his company. But, it's like, where is his freedom, He's like under a lot of pressure to make these choices constantly. And so, he may reach a point where he's just burned out and overwhelmed and he just wants to sit at home. Now, is he free to do that? Or is he going to lose his job? Because, he just wants to, his body is saying, hey, I want to relax and take it easy. And, the businessman, he can feel that. He can feel the call of his body sort of speaking to him to say, hey, I'm burned out, I need to relax. But I'm going to be less free now because I'm going to lose my job if I do that. If I do what my body wants. So I'm not free to make that decision. But I'm afraid of making that decision because I stake my freedom of all the choices that I get to make every day, because I'm a man who gets to make a lot of choices, so therefore people view me as important because they come to me they come to me and they offer me their problems, and I come up with the solutions. I'm like King Solomon or something. So I provide value with my, business wisdom. And that's how I see myself as free. So, the question is choice freedom? What is freedom? Is it freedom if you have to make a choice? Could it be freedom where there is no choice and you're just flowing like a river? It's like what's more free? Is a river more free? Is it a river that more free is sort of like, is a river that is like consciously choosing its path more free, or is a river that merely flows where it naturally feels to flow more free? So is the river that is like saying, hey, I want to like make a left turn here, even though like the energy says to go right, but I want to make a left. So I am the river and I am choosing, because if I don't choose left when nature says go right, then I'm not free. So I don't have freedom unless I choose to do the opposite of what comes most natural. And so I think this is an interesting thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, because they're posed, they stake their freedom on choice, and so they feel compelled to choose against themselves, because if they went with what came most natural to them, then they would feel like there's no choice to be made, so there's no freedom. Because that's too fucking easy, It's too easy to just to feel what, do what comes most naturally from a place of greater flow and greater alignment with, whatever it is that comes most naturally. And so people almost invent, the opposite of what feels good. And then they force themselves to choose that, because that's how they make themselves feel free. But free from what? Free from, I don't know, free from happiness, free from being relaxed and at peace. It's like, how often do people create chaos in their lives because they say, I have to do this, otherwise I'm not free. I have to get into these troublesome relationships. I have to do some kind of destructive thing in my relationship with this person, because if I don't, then then I'll be a hostage or something. It's like a lot of people, like, they just get this pressure inside of themselves that builds up, and then they feel like that's where that's where a choice is to be made, and so they have to choose the thing that creates more effort, more controversy, and perhaps less freedom, because perhaps freedom is more about allowing the current of life to be the chooser, and not so much feel like you have to be separate from life to also participate in choice. But perhaps there's like true freedom, and true choice comes from identifying more with the will of the cosmos, and it's like, it's sort of like I think somewhere in the Bible, or somewhere Jesus says, seek first the kingdom of heaven and all else shall be added onto you. Sort of like he's saying that, if you align yourself with nature sort of has a way of providing for you, because you're not chasing it down or hunting it down. You're just simply allowing yourself to become more your natural self, and there's a freedom in that, and there's sort of it's not choice so much. Choice becomes less of an issue, because you're flowing more and you're fighting less. So anyhow, these are some of the things that I sort of wanted to say verbally, because they were in my mind, and I wanted to feel that freedom of the flow of current flowing through me. Anyhow, I think I'll leave it here. Have a good one.